Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 8th day of July, 2026 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge, Text 11, page 197 at the bottom. Ye yata mam prapadyante tangs tataiva bhajami aham mama vartmana vartante manusyah partha sarvashaha. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tang tathaiva bhajamyaham. Mama vartmana vartante manusyak partha sarvashaha. Ye yatamam prapadyante tang sathaiva bhajamyaham. Mama vartmana vartante manusyak partha sarvashaha. Ye yatamam prapadyante tang sathaiva bhajamyaham. Mama vartmana vartante manusyak partha sarvashaha. Bhakta Roy. Ye yatamam prapadyante tang sathaiva bhajamyaham. Mama vartmana vartante manusyak partha sarvashaha. Ye yathamam prapadyante tang sathaiva bhajamyaham. Mama vartmana vartante manusyak partha sarvashaha. Ye yatamam prapadyante tang sathaiva bhajamyaham. Manusyak partha. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Manusyak partha sarvashaha. Ye yatamam prapadyante tam sathaiva bhajamyaham. Mama vartmana vartante manusya partha sarvashaha. Almost 100. It's pretty good. Okay. I'm gathering you don't want to try it. Not yet? Okay. Prem Gopal, you there?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Go ahead.
Ye yatamam prapadyante
Ye yatamam prapadyante
tam tadaiva bhajamyaham.
tang sathaiva bhajamyaham.
Mama vartmanu vartante
Manovatanu bhartante
manusya partha sarvashaha.
manusya partha sarvashaha. Chaitanya Lila.
Ye yatamam prapadyante
Ye yatamam prapadyante
tam stataiva bhajamyaham.
tang sathaiva bhajamyaham.
Mamam vartmanu vartante
Mama vartmanu vartante
manusya partha sarvashaha.
manusya partha sarvashaha. I gather Vanessa's not there. Hold on.
Not yet. No.
Okay. What
Or
were you-
she's not.
What are you asking? Yeah, he's...
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, she's not here. No.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Sorry.
All right. Word by word meanings. Yea, all who, yata, as mam, unto me, that's Krishna, of course, papadyante, surrender, tan, them, tata, so, eva, certainly, bhajami, reward. Aham, I, mama, my, vartma, path, anuvartante, follow, manusyaha, all men, partha, O son of Pṛthā, sarvashaha, in all respects. Translation. As all surrender, Krishna says, as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pṛthā. Purport. Everyone is searching for Krishna in the different aspects of his manifestations. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is partially realized in his impersonal Brahmajyoti effulgence and as the all-pervading Supersoul dwelling within everything, including the particles of atoms. But Krishna is fully realized only by his pure devotees. Consequently, Krishna is the object of everyone's realization, and thus anyone and everyone is satisfied according to one's desire to have him. In the transcendental world also, Krishna reciprocates with his pure devotees in the transcendental attitude, just as the devotee wants him. One devotee may want Krishna as Supreme Master, another as his personal friend, another as his son, and still another as his lover. Krishna rewards all the devotees equally according to their different intensities of love for him. In the material world, the same reciprocations of feelings are there, and they are equally exchanged by the Lord with the different types of worshippers. The pure devotees, both here and in the transcendental abode, associate with him in person and are able to render personal service to the Lord and thus derive transcendental bliss in his loving service. As for those who are impersonalists and who want to commit spiritual suicide by annihilating the individual existence of the living entity, Krishna helps also by absorbing them into his effulgence. Such impersonalists do not agree to accept the eternal, blissful personality of Godhead. Consequently, they cannot relish the bliss of transcendental personal service to the Lord, having extinguished their individuality. Some of them, who are not firmly situated even in the impersonal existence, return to this material field to exhibit their dormant desires for activities. They are not admitted into the spiritual planets, but they are again given a chance to act on the material planets. For those who are fruitive workers, the Lord awards the desired results of their prescribed duties as the Yageshwara. He's the master of the sacrifice. And those who are yogis seeking mystic powers are awarded such powers. In other words, everyone is dependent for success upon his mercy alone. And all kinds of spiritual processes are but different degrees of success on the same path. Unless, therefore, one comes to the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness, all attempts remain imperfect, as is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10. Akama sarvakamo va mokshakama hudadadihi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Whether one is without desire, the condition of the devotees, or is desirous of all fruitive results, or is after liberation, one should with all efforts try to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for complete perfection, culminating in Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So this is another one of these very famous verses, often quoted. And what Krishna is saying here is that it depends on us what we get out of Bhakti Yoga. Krishna is perfectly willing to reciprocate our sincere devotion, and to the degree that it's truly selfless and our desire is pure, meaning that we're desiring to please Krishna and the Guru. And there's a nice verse in this, very important verse in this chapter coming up about the Guru. Krishna will reciprocate. He will purify. He will reward us with mukta sangha. Who remembers what that phrase means? Come on, Ami, you know Sanskrit. Mukta sangha. What does that mean? Freedom from attachment, material attachment. This phrase comes up in the Bhagavad Gita. We read one verse with it. So, mukta sangha, that sangha, just remember, sangha has two meanings. As you know, I like to point out the incredible Sanskrit language. For instance, the word gati. Gati commonly means the goal, but it also means the means to the goal. And sangha means association, and it also means attachment. From association comes attachment. That's why parents who are really responsible, they're very concerned with who their children are associating with. Nowadays, they're concerned with what sites they're getting on their iPhone. Right? It's a different world. Because that association, whether it's virtual, through some electronics, or personal, will affect the growth of their child's personality, their mind, their attachments will grow in that way. So responsible parents always want to see the child has good association. They're concerned, that he goes to school and all the different things and get association. So similarly, Krishna is conscious, being completely conscious of where we're at, being the super soul. We should always remember that he's there. He understands our consciousness, our feelings, everything. So as we surrender, what that surrender means basically dovetailing our desires and activities and aspirations with his. The problem here is that Arjuna doesn't want to follow Krishna's advice. That he doesn't want to do it. Krishna put him in this position. He covered him with Maya so that Bhagavad Gita could be spoken. Arjuna is an eternal associate of Krishna. He's a friend, intimate friend. But so it was arranged by Krishna for our benefit and for the world's benefit. So Krishna reciprocates with our attitude, and if we ignore him from millions of births, then we won't feel his presence in anything. We won't believe in him. We could very easily become atheists. But he's definitely there, and the proof is, and this is why association with, if you can, with realized souls is so important, because you can see the result of this process of bhakti. You can see the perfection, and we saw that with Srila Prabhupada. How when he would sing, he would love to do bhajans and lead kirtan, and you could see it was real. His love for Krishna was real, and he was proving it by the sacrifice he was willing to undergo in order to give us Krishna, because he knew that was Krishna's most ardent desire. That was what he wanted most, is that the holy name be spread, that knowledge of him would be spread, and that everyone, as far as wide and far as possible in the world, would get a chance to awaken their dormant Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada sacrificed everything for that. So he was obviously very dear to Krishna, and he showed it by his activities and his willingness to persist, even as old age and disease eventually caught up with him. But he was still, getting up in the middle of the night, writing these books, dealing with all of the problems in ISKCON. If you really want an amazing story, read Giriraj Swami's books, I'll build you a temple. This is about the first Bombay temple in Juhu Beach. And, Prabhupada found the land, and the devotees bought it, but they didn't buy it outright. There was a whole conspiracy by the original owner to cheat the devotees. And he even bribed the police to raid the uncompleted temple. I saw this when I was in 1977 when I visited. The land was there, and they supposedly had it, but they told me about a raid that had taken place. He had induced the police to raid the temple and to knock down partially the temporary building. And it was, I remember, these things stick out in my mind. I was at a gathering, I think it was in LA, maybe it was Ratha Yatra. But one lady who had been there, one devotee who had been there, and was trying to resist, the police and everything, they dragged her by her hair, off the property, and they arrested her, And she was, there was a very purifying experience. She felt that she was making this great sacrifice, which she was, for the safety of the deities. So it's an incredible story, and I advise you to try to find the book. I'm sure you can get it on Kindle if you have to do that. It's kind of cheaper and easy to read. But I'll build you a temple. Giriraj Swami was right in the middle of it. He was the president there, and I actually had an opportunity to interview him and others who in leadership in late 1977. This was after Prabhupada disappeared, and I was there in Vrindavan just after he disappeared and all the things that happened there. It was quite a traumatic time in ISKCON. But I went to Navadvip to interview Sridhar Swami, Prabhupada's godbrother. I was a reporter. I was working for Back to Godhead, so I'm gathering a news story, and we had heard that he had evidence that Prabhupada was a Shaktivesh avatar. This was definitely worthy of a news story. So I went over, and I got in the gate, and there was Krishnadas Babaji, another famous godbrother of Prabhupada. And I went and I offered my dandabats, and he asked me why I'd come, and I told him. He said, he told Krishnadas, get me the copy of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he got one verse there, which said, I forget the first line, but it means, in this age, Krishna Sankirtan is the only way of spreading Krishna consciousness. And then the second line says, Krishna Shakti Vinda Nahitar Pravartan. Without being empowered by Krishna especially, one cannot spread the holy name all over the world. You see? Prabhupada spread the whole name all over the world. So he was obviously empowered, which is the definition of a Shaktivesh avatar. Shaktivesh means someone who's specially empowered. So that I had my news there, and then I went to Bombay from there, and I was going to write an article about the opening of the Bombay temple. It was a big event. It was a big struggle, which you'll read in that book if you get it. So anyway, this verse, describes perfectly, how Krishna. Who is a good example of this? Srila Prabhupada himself. The Bhakti Vikas Swami, who's a wonderful writer. He's a really wonderful writer. He wrote this massive biography of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, which he's giving away for free. You can download it if you want it. I can send it to you, nice big PDF. It took him years. I was here. Mahatattva was his disciple. He was now Bhaktiananda Tirtha Swami, and he was helping him in some way organize the book. And the whole time that Mahatattva was here as the president, he was here 8, 9, 10 years, I forget. The book was being worked on. It was quite an incredible project. So he wrote a beautiful passage, which I can get for you and also provide you. It's, I think, a chapter in a book he wrote about Prabhupada. I forget the name of it. But it's all about that moment of Prabhupada getting on the boat, getting on the Jaladuta to really make an unequivocal commitment to coming to America. I mean, just imagine it. Just try to project yourself. It's easy for me because I'm, an elder. But, I'm lucky my health is holding up. But, he had no money. He had no connection at the other end. He had one commitment to put him up for a couple of weeks in Butler, Pennsylvania, which has become famous for another reason I won't mention. But that was his first destination. But basically, he's entering into an environment that is alien. There's not a lot of Vaishnavas around. There's no Vaishnava basically. So he comes back to New York, and anyway, it's an incredible story. But it exactly illustrates the truth of this verse. How Krishna reciprocated with Prabhupada's determination. And even though he was old and frail and whatever, he empowered him and arranged so many things for him in his environment that it was an incredible success. That he was able to spread it in America, starting in New York, and then he went to San Francisco, and the mantra rock dance. It was the middle of the hippie era, and the Beatles were interested in Eastern yoga and everything, and all kinds of arrangements were made. And anyways, it was a success, and Krishna reciprocated wonderfully by just think of little things like this. Some of the most the incredible devotees who joined in those early days to make everything possible. Just think of Mukunda, Michael Grant. Michael Grant was a professional musician. Actually, he had graduated from some of the same university that Yamuna went to. I think they knew each other before, like that. So he's in New York. He's working in some professional studio, jazz, arranging stuff. He's a professional musician. But he's also interested in Eastern philosophy, as many people were. He wasn't heavy into drugs. I know that he took somewhat, and somehow he found Prabhupada not in 26th Avenue, but in the Bowery, where all the homeless drunks hung out. I lived in Long Island. I know that place. So he was able to get a loft. He's 70 years old. He's not in the great. So he has to walk up 3 or 4 flights in order to get to the place where he's living. But he found him, and then, then he walked in, and there was a kirtan going on. He's a musician, so actually he got into it, And gradually he became an essential member, and he is the one who found 26 2nd Avenue in the Village Voice, and enabled Prabhupada to move there and get out of the Bowery and start everything. And then, along with his wife, he had a girlfriend who later became his wife, Janaki, and his friend, Yamuna. They knew each other from Reed College and everything. And her husband, Guru Das, and Shama Sundar and Malati, and their newborn little girl, Saraswati. This is the group that went. Shama Sundar, he said, if we got to meet the Beatles. The Beatles are so popular now, and now they're somewhat interested in Eastern philosophy, So that was his desire. So they went to Montreal, where Prabhupada had his visa. He couldn't stay in the United States. He had to get renewed permission. But Montreal in Canada was part of the British Commonwealth, meaning that it was under along with India. So a lot of Indians came in. They easily settled there. They didn't have to worry about immigration and everything. So there's a nice Indian community there. So he had a place in Montreal. There had been a bowling alley. That was the first temple in Montreal. Not the best suitable, but so the 6 of them that I just mentioned, Sharmasundar and Malati, Mukunda and Janaki, and Yamuna and Guru Das, and Yamuna was just, so wonderful musician. She was from the beginning, and a cook. She wrote a prize-winning what is it called? A recipe book. So anyway, they all went to. They expressed their desire to Prabhupada, and he said, yes, I bless you to go. And he trained them up a little bit in various, I think, kirtan techniques and everything. And then he sent them to England, and he expected to follow them when they got, the temple going on there. So this was in 68. And they go there and somehow find a place to stay in the middle of London, and they were going out on Harinam, and people were aghast. It was the first; no one has ever seen that before. And finally, Shama Sundar, he was able to. They got into the Apple Studios, and he was waiting outside with a lot of other people who were hoping to see the Beatles come out. And he's sitting there, and George Harrison comes and he sees, oh, I've been trying to find you people, and he went right to Shama Sundar, and that was a great connection. And before long, they recorded professionally a little album, which became very popular in Europe. It was an incredible thing. So that was all happening exactly because of this verse. They were surrendered to Krishna, to Prabhupada. They were trying their best, and Krishna made all these arrangements that they had incredible success. And the whole movement really had a tremendous flowering there in Britain at that time. And then from there, meanwhile, it was growing on the West Coast in America and everything. So this verse is, the truth of it is shown by the way ISKCON developed and is still developing in this world. And for each of us also, we can feel, if we genuinely pray and try to follow the principles as so nicely described here in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and also the Nectar of Devotion, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and other books, then Krishna will reciprocate. He'll reciprocate by the most important thing, making us less interested in Maya and more interested in Him, you see, and really, really tasting, relishing kirtan and association and everything about Krishna consciousness. We'll get that higher taste. And that is a tremendous reciprocation, because then we'll want to do Krishna consciousness. We'll get angry at ourselves. So why did I do that? I should have done this. I should get more serious. Hare Krishna, Hare Bhava. So that's how this verse works. And Prabhupada quotes this verse, this great verse in the second canto. A lot of these are famous verses. Kama. In the early part of this chapter, the third chapter of the second canto, there's a whole laundry list, whatever you want. There's some god or goddess that you can pray to get it, If you want great sensual power and enjoy, then worship Indra. If you want a wonderful wife, of course a man would do this, then you worship, I think, Uma. If you want good health, the sun god, You know, people are doing that, they don't even know what they're doing, going to the beach, but that's it. You know, it helps your health. And it goes on and on like that. There's a whole list, you know. But then at the end of it is this verse. But if you don't want any of these things, akama means you have no material desire, or you're full of all kinds of material desire, sarvakamava, or you want moksha, freedom from entanglement in this material world. If you're intelligent, udaradi, tivrena bhakti yogena, very important word, tivrena, means intense, not just dabbling, but really put all your heart and mind into it. Bhakti yogena, yajeta purusham param. Bhakti yoga to who? The Supreme Person, purusham param, Krishna. So in other words, even if you're filled with all material desires, still, if you're intelligent, you'll chant Hare Krishna and go to the temple, you know. Because those material desires, it doesn't take much intelligence to understand and read the Bhagavad Gita, those will bring you back again to suffer another birth, old age, disease, and death. As I love to recite this verse, as you've heard it about 40 times. In the next chapter, text 22, Yehi sangsparja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyantavantam konteya nateshu ramate buddha. Buddha means those who are really intelligent. The intelligent don't take part in the pleasures that result from the senses contact with their objects. In other words, sense gratification. Such pleasures are the sources of all misery, and they have a beginning and an end. And so the wise do not delight in them. So what kind of pleasure do they delight in? Because we're part and parcel of Krishna, who is the supreme enjoyer. So we're little enjoyers. Problem is, we're trying to enjoy in the wrong way, which results in suffering. So first of all, how does the sense gratification result in suffering? Well, in several ways. First of all, even without knowing anything about yoga or Krishna consciousness or anything, everyone knows that if you overindulge in some pleasure, eventually there's a bad reaction. The obvious thing is just eating too much. You know, I mean, I'm not talking about overeating the feast. That's another thing. But that'll happen also because we're limited. But you know, eating a lot of the wrong kinds of foods, damaging foods, you know, all of this highly processed foods with too much salt and all of that stuff, you know, it's damaging to your health. There's no question about it. But people do it anyway, just like they'll smoke anyway, even though it says right in the pack, warning, you know. It used to say smoking may be hazardous to your health. Now it says smoking is dangerous to your health. You know, it's not maybe. But still, so many people still smoke. I see them on the street. Even, you know, they're walking the dog and smoking a cigarette. So that's the problem, is that as soon as you indulge the senses, then a certain element of addiction comes in. You want to do it again. That was so pleasurable. Oh yeah, let's try it again. And if or you overdo it, and you become. We had one lady here. I mean, she had smoked all her life. She had joined. She was about 45, 50. She joined late. You remember her, Phyllis. He was initiated, Padmavati. And the poor lady, she had what is known as COPD. Who knows what COPD is? You know. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, you know. And that means a hard time breathing, you know. And eventually she would come here. We didn't have these benches at the time, but I think we had some seats. And she would sit there with an oxygen little thing, you know, that was helping her breathe while she listened to the class. Eventually she passed from it, and fortunately we were there chanting Hare Krishna when she passed in the hospital. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you know where to draw the line? Like, for example, with food, like we'll need food to nourish our bodies to keep going. Uh-huh. But it can also be a sense desire that becomes addictive at the same time. So how do you know
it certainly can. Yeah.
Where to draw the line?
Well, the first thing is that we have to try to arrange so that we can always eat prasadam. You know, it's not difficult to learn how to cook the vegetarian preparations, and also to offer it to Krishna. It's a simple way of offering it. There's actually, we have it, many of the books have in the back, Practicing Krishna Consciousness at Home. This was written by a devotee named Mahatma. You remember? Were he when Mahatma was here? You don't remember him. He was here when I got here. He was here in 1989. Very nice devotee. He's a guru now, though he's not a sannyasi. And he wrote this wonderful thing, you know, because you get a book, and it may be fascinating, you know, one of these books. There's a new book out, by the way, called In Essence. Have you seen that? It's a small book. And it was put together by Kaishori, who's an experienced editor, used to edit for Satsuru Maharaj long ago, and she works for the BBT. And this devotee named, what is it, Bhagavad Keshava Maharaj, is it? You know, he came here. I think he's very famous. He gave some lectures here, and he has, you know, he's on YouTube a lot. And so they've thought of different questions that people might ask, and they answered them from Prabhupada's writings and from his lectures. You know, it's a small book. And so it recently came out. I saw a couple of copies. I think it was sitting in the kitchen over here or something, but it's worth looking into. So, you asked a question, which was? Where to draw the line. Yeah, okay, so let's start with eating, because that can be obviously a major sense gratification that can ruin your life. If you don't know anything about, you know, how damaging it is to eat meat, then I always ate meat. Why should I not eat meat? You know, I'll eat you know. But the fact is, if you eat meat, you can't really develop interest in Krishna consciousness. Krishna won't let you. It said, Pashugnat. There's a verse. Nivritta tarsha rupagiyamana. For those who are in the morning class, we just started the first chapter a few weeks ago of the 10th canto. And a few verses in, Pṛthā, he utters this verse in his part of his appeal for Shukadev to please now let's hear the 10th canto, because this is Krishna Lila, you know, so he's been waiting 7 days, 6.5 days, whatever it is. So this verse is really important, and it's there in the Krishna book. It's one of the very few verses quoted in the Krishna book at the beginning of the introduction. So here's the verse. Navritta tarshad upagiyamanad babausadat shrota mano biramat ka uttama shloka gunanuvadat puman varajeta vina pashugnat. Now the word pashugnat literally means animal killers, but it also means one who's committing spiritual suicide. The pashu can also mean the living entity. So, but what does the verse say? So he said, Nivritta tarshaya means by those who are free of material desire. Tarsha comes from the word trishna, which means thirst. Nivritta means free of material thirst for any material sense gratification. These are the pure devotees. So when they sing and they recite the glories of Krishna, Nivritta upagiyamana, it acts as a bhavaushadhi, a medicine to cure the disease of birth and death. But it's very sweet medicine, shrota mano abhiramat, but it's very delightful for the ear and for the heart and the mind. Shrota mano abhiramat, delightful. So then the question is, okay, here's this sound vibration that is sweet to hear, it's attractive. It also, you know, serves as a vaccine, if you will, against birth, old age, disease, and death, because you're going to get liberation. And so then he said, who would give it up? Ka uttama shloka gunanuvada. Who would give up this description of the character and the qualities and the pastimes, name and form of uttama shloka? Now, uttama shloka is a wonderful word. You've heard of the word shloka, right? I mean, we have so many shlokas here. So uttama shloka is he who is glorified in the most beautiful shlokas. It's a name for Krishna. Who would give up hearing this? You say, except Puman, that person, Virajeta, means give up. Vina Pashugnat, only those who are Pashugnat, out and out meat eaters, you know, and sinful people, or those who are committing spiritual suicide by preferring the impersonal Brahman type of thing, you know. So in other words, that's where we need to direct our attention. And when we learn a little bit about how can I eat, prasadam all the time? Well, you can hang around the temple, and you can take lunch and dinner here if you like. Or you can learn how to make it yourself, how to offer it. But it means transforming your life, your environment, wherever you live. so that there's a facility for cooking. You know how to prepare. You can learn from the devotees or some nice cookbooks. What is it? Higher Taste has some very nice recipes in there. The Higher Taste book. So that's a big step forward. You're purifying your eating. There's several verses that are going to come up here about the importance of eating prasadam rather than regular food, because prasadam will purify your heart and your desire, and regular food, even if it's vegetarian, will still help to ground you in this world. So the answer is that it's a culture. Now we have to recognize that in our present state, we're conditioned. Means that we have so many habits of thought and habits of activity that are part of the great web that is binding us to this material world. It's a web of desire and also aversion. We have to. It says, what is it? Raga dvesha vimuktais. There's a verse. I think we read it already. Raga vekta vimuktais vishayanu niyasyadan atma vashavedayatma prasadam anigachati. So raga dvesha means a material attachment and material abhorrence. Vimuktai, those who are free of both. You see, perfect example. I gave these the other day. I won't go through it again. Haridas Thakur and Prahlad Maharaj. So Vishayan for the object of the senses. Indriyais charan. Even when the senses are moving amongst the objects of the senses, they are free of raga. They can, a perfect example is Srila Prabhupada. I'm telling you, back in the day, before they gentrified it, kind of, Times Square in New York, I used to live in the New York area. You walk there and suddenly, there's movie theaters on either side. But they're all like what we call dirty movies, They're movies with, pornography. So Prabhupada is wandering those streets looking for customers for his Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. We have class until 8:15, which will be about 10, 12 minutes. And then we'll have darshan and kirtan, okay? Either way, you can sit on the chair. Huh? Yeah. You can sit here, wherever you like. We're studying Bhagavad Gita, as it is. So Prabhupada was completely oblivious to that. He walked in the middle of that. He was trying to find someone who might respond to the books that he had, because that's all he had of value. It was sustaining him. So that's the way we want to be, to train our minds that from the chanting, the japa chanting, the kirtan, hearing and chanting, doing practical service. This is the cultivation of Krishna consciousness. There's so many do's, there's so many don'ts, just like in any process. And that enables us to move within the material world without being disturbed one way or the other by responding and getting attached to do something we shouldn't do, or being repulsed in such a way that we're very disturbed by it. This is what happens. This is what it means to be a sadhu. The first quality is tolerance. The people, it doesn't happen so much anymore, but in the early days we'd get catcalls. I remember we used to go to Fort Lauderdale. I was in Miami, and then when spring break came, it was classic. Thousands of young people would gather there, and they'd be in the beach and doing all kinds of stuff, drinking. So they would, I remember we would do Harinam on the street, and they're pouring beers down from the second floor, getting on you. And then we go out into the beach, and they're mooning us. You know what that means. If you don't, it's not pleasant. But anyway, it was all this stuff, and we're just chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. It didn't bother you. Now, if you're just an ordinary guy walking, and you go, oh my God, they're doing it. No, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. That's it, and you feel the protection of Krishna. You feel that he's giving you the ability to tolerate this, and then the thing that happens is after an experience like that, you feel blessed. You feel stronger. I could have reacted this way, but that would have been the wrong thing. Now Krishna protected me. So that's the answer. By the process of Krishna consciousness, you become stronger. Krishna blesses you with spiritual power. Little by little, as he said in this verse. As they surrender to me. So just picking up beads and chanting Hare Krishna, that is an act of surrender. And there's a quality to it. The more that you can really hear with full attention and pray with sincerity, that's even more surrender. And Krishna reciprocates. And the reciprocation mostly comes in the form of more taste to do it, to go to the temple instead of the movies. No, I'm not going to the temple. I'm not going to the movies. Forget that. I have enough of that. I'm going to go to this Hare Krishna temple. I'm going to have a nice kirtan there. I'll see these beautiful deities, Radha Giridhari, They just had yesterday the outfits. Did you see? I thought it was this Pride Day, because it was rainbow, right? I said no, it's Prideless Day. Anyway, it was just my own private thing, because you want to be. The whole idea is to become free from false pride, So anyway, that's neither here nor there. But one way or another, they're always attractive. Radha Giridhari, we're very fortunate, these deities. And just to call your attention, you're probably familiar with this. Radharani has her hand up, Abhay Dan. You know what Abhay Dan is? The gift of fearlessness. She's bestowing with fearlessness. She's saying, everything's going to be all right. Don't worry. Just surrender. Just, chant our names, and, you'll be able to go back to Godhead, and we'll welcome you there. Hare Krishna. So this is part of Krishna consciousness, is that every day is really a new adventure. Sometimes you may have had a setback, and said, well, okay, I'm going to really be more strict in my chanting. I'm going, like that. So that's what it is. And the more that you really are sincere, and everything that we do, like bowing down, there's a beautiful book. Oh boy, it's getting late. Never enough time. Krishna Leela Stava. It's a summary of Krishna's Vrindavan Leela by Sanatana Goswami, and he's intertwined so many obeisances. Many of the verses have Namaha, Namaha like that. And at the beginning of that, my old friend Gopi Pranadana Prabhu, who I worked with for 6 years in finishing Bhagavatam in the 80s, 83 to 89, he translated the book. And at the beginning, he included a introduction describing the really inner meaning of offering obeisances. That word namaha, namaha. So there's different levels of it. Just like, ladies are not supposed to do the whole thing, the dandavats, that, but still internally you can do that. And that means it's full surrender. And the word namaha literally means not mine. You're offering obeisance to Prabhupada, and you say, Prabhupada, this body, mine, it's not mine. It's yours. I wanted to dedicate it to your service. The same thing with the deities. Nama, nama, nama. That's why it says, Shri Guru Chadana Padma, Kevala Bhakti Sadma, Vandomi Savadana Mate. The second line, Vando, means to offer obeisances. It also means to offer prayers, but in this case it means to offer. Vandomi Savadana, with great attention. Well, I think a lot of that attention is in the prayers that you're saying as you offer obeisances. You should know the meaning of it, and you should really feel sincere when you say it. Nama, Srila Prabhupada, please use this body and mind in the service of Krishna, like that. So all of these things, when you practice regularly, then Krishna sees your sincerity, and he gives you more and more realization, and he gives you more and more strength to do the things you should do but you're reluctant to do, and to give up the things you should give up that you're reluctant to give up. Surrender as in anything. You want to become I give this example, a champion pole vaulter. I want to win the Olympics, right? Well, there's a path. There's a pole vaulter marg, right? It means a path to becoming you got to find a coach, a trainer. Hold it. No, you hold it stick this way. And you run this way. And how's your diet? What I mean? So it's a whole lifestyle, and you have your goal in mind. Yes, I'm going to be a champion. I'm going to stand on there. I'm going to win the Olympics. It's a mundane goal, but the principle is still the same. So we have this bhakti marga. It's a path from maya and illusion to ultimate bliss, going back to Godhead, the goal of life. So, and the wonderful thing, it's been wonderfully described, and the path is cleared for us and given, and it's feasible to do it. Even in this age of Kali, even in this modern age with all the crazy things going on, we can still practice if we're determined. And the facility has been given to us. So you just learn, the do's and don'ts, and you try to do more and more, and in the association you'll be able to do it. Okay? Oh, you have a question?
I do. It's from Gopal, humble obeisances.
Okay, go ahead.
If there's enough time, I had two questions. One is a grammar question, so that could be fairly easy. But in the middle of the purport, there's a sentence that I'm really curious about, and hopefully you might be able to explain it.
Where is it?
It says, as for those who are impersonalists who want to commit spiritual suicide by annihilating the individual existence of the living entity, Krishna helps also by absorbing them into his effulgence.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Krishna helps also by absorbing them into his effulgence.
Well, there really isn't much time to answer this question.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to defer that, but I'm sure we'll meet again soon. And
We will.
Keep it in mind, because
I
I think I can answer it. But okay, we have 3 minutes for poetry. You have a question? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All right, here we go. Okay. Here's one of my old favorites. Barha pidam natavadavapu karnayo karnikaram Bibran basak karnaka kapisham baijayanting chamalam Randran veno hadadasudeha puriyan gopa vrindaranyam swabadanamanam pravishad gita kirtihi. This is a meditation on Krishna entering into the forest of Vrindavan with all his friends, and the cows and the gopis are standing watching, and they're getting ready to sing about him. And so this is one of the first verses they chant. With lovely peacock plume upon his head, and fragrant flower placed upon each ear, he enters Braja's wood with graceful tread, a handsome dancing actor without peer. His golden yellow raiment brightly glows, his splendid garland reaches to his knees, and from his luscious lips the nectar flows, and fills his flute with charming melodies. As Krishna thus begins his blissful day, with cowherd friends who sing his glory sweet, he beautifies Vrindavan's forest way, with fine impressions of his lotus feet. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Now we will adjourn, and hopefully we'll be able to get in position in time for Arti. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you all for coming. And also thank those online. Hari Bol.